We freshen things up with Febreze Fabric Spray. Oh, and a big spray for my pals, couch and ottoman. Ah, yes, refreshing. Breathe happy, Febreze. La 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 la.
101 at KSL News Radio. I'm Heather Peterson. KSL's top story this hour. The National Transportation Safety Board is giving an update on their progress into the investigation of a mid-air plane collision that killed 67 people in D.C. last night. NTSB Chair Jennifer Hamady says they have been letting first responders on the scene take priority as they continue the recovery effort.
And so this, for us, is our first full day on scene with our entire crew coming together. We have about nearly 50 people on scene, and in addition to our resources back at headquarters in our labs and throughout the agency.
They said they're going to stay on the scene as long as it takes to determine what happened. A bill is taking aim at the parents of children who commit crimes with guns unsecured left in their home. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
It's influenced by a bill out of Florida that penalizes parents whose children commit crimes with guns they knowingly did not store in a safe place. State Representative Andrew Stoddard says it's not to take aim at parents and families who are victims of tragedies. It's very specific. The parents would have to have stored it recklessly, and the child would have had to take it out in public and intentionally committed a crime with it.
Stoddard says they're working with gun lobbyists on the language of the bill, and it's not an attack on the Second Amendment. And Senator John Curtis is among those in the U.S. Senate introducing a bill to keep kids off social media. He says the bipartisan legislation would set a minimum age of 13 to use social media platforms and prevent social media companies targeting content towards users under the age of 17. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 285 points, S&P up 41, and the NASDAQ is up 89. Coming up, we've had a interesting traffic day so far. KSL Traffic is next. KSL News Time, 1:03.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Salt Lake Community College doesn't just support students. We support the economy. At Intermountain Health, we've had a partnership with Salt Lake Community College for over 22 years. The Salt Lake Community College graduates bring to us a sense of joy and excitement about the future, which infuses into our culture. My name is Amy Christensen. I'm the chief nurse at Intermountain Health for Utah and Idaho, and I oversee all the nursing services.
SLCC is invested in creating a strong workforce for a strong Utah. See our impact at slcc.edu/community.
Emergency traffic brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now I'm looking at a live shot as UHP is doing a freeway slowdown on northbound I-15, holding back all traffic, and they're getting ready to approach 7200 South, but the big gap backups still reach into Draper at 114th South. Now, this is likely due to crews still on the scene of this hazmat situation in Murray, northbound I-15, not far from 53rd South. 2 right lanes, they're still blocked. The backups it was causing have cleared out, but expect another 15 to 20 minutes of delays if you're going from Draper to Midvale. Looking for the perfect suit for that special occasion? Mr. Mac has the best suit selection for any occasion, and get winter clearance pricing today. Visit their 9 convenient locations or MrMac.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The warming trend continues over the next couple days. Today we'll have temps in the low 40s, and by Sunday we'll hit the 50s. But with it, we'll also see some stormy weather this weekend. Right now it's sunny and 41 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
It's the most talked about story today, the deadly crash in the skies between a regional passenger jet and a military helicopter. More than 60 people are dead. President Trump addressed the nation earlier and confirmed what many had been dreading, that there were, in fact, no survivors. Welcome to Inside Sources. I'm your host, Erin Ryder, here with guest host Jason Perry of the University of Utah's Hinckley Institute of Politics. Welcome, Jason.
Erin, so good to be with you today.
It's so good to have you here. But this is a special treat for our listeners. Jason is the man around town, really. So
well, I can't wait to talk about some of these big issues of the day, and certainly this one is leading the headlines. But it's always good to be with you. You have such great political insight. We got a lot of political stories to talk about today.
We do. Well, let's start with this one. We just were listening to a briefing from the National Transportation Safety Board, kind of talking through the process and what they're going to be doing, saying that no stone will be left unturned as they go through and try and figure out exactly what happened here. But let's just start this off. President Trump, in his remarks, gave a statement just, I think, expressing how a lot of people are feeling. Let's take a quick listen to that.
We are a country of, we are in mourning. This is really shaking a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight.
So, just a quick recap on this. It was a regional jet full of a lot of figure skaters, actually, coming back from Wichita, Kansas, from a training camp, flying into D.C. and crashed with the Black Hawk military helicopter. Jason, you and I have both spent quite a bit of time in D.C., particularly at this airport. How are you reacting to this today?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a tragedy in every sense. And that's what we're hearing about it too. And as you think about that, about what's going to happen next, because I want to talk about that airport a little bit too. And since you and I have been there so many times, and I've flown into that airport more times than I can remember, and it is a precarious little approach. As you come right over the Potomac River into that, and it is one busy airport. So I think is part of this story because I think the least helpful thing we can do right now is start trying to do the blame game.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and we've already seen that happen. We've seen statements from Pete Buttigieg, who was the former director of transportation. We've seen President Trump pointing fingers at the previous administration. But the reality is we just don't know what happened. And so until we have more information on that, until we know more, it's not even worth going there because this really is a tragedy, like you said. And that's, I think, where we want to spend our time right now.
I think that's right. You think about these families and those, and all the implications of that. We want to take care of them the best we can. And then that part of this is making sure this doesn't happen again. There will be something in there where you'll find some procedure or safeguard that should have been in place that was not followed or something like that. We don't know that yet. So that's why it's not so helpful to dwell on it. It's how can we help these families and how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah. We've also seen statements from the 2034 Olympic Committee here in Salt Lake expressing their sorrow at this tragedy as well, because since this was an airplane full of figure skaters, there are implications in the Olympic community and in the figure skating community. This reaches far and wide for that community.
So it does, we only know some of these people are going to be most impacted. We'll talk about them. Our hearts and prayers are with all those people as well. And it gets to this overall issue of air safety as well. I mean, it's been a long time since it's been 16 years since we've had a major U.S. commercial air crash in the country, in which you start thinking about air travel itself, and many people have been doing this, and the implications of this are going to be felt almost immediately. People think about it anyway, and this kind of brings back, some of us, remember back to 2016. I remember back to when there was a crash in the Potomac River in the early 80s as well. It just kind of brings those memories back.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, let's talk. I think that you mentioned earlier the importance of this airport. I think that's a great place to talk about this for a minute because, the Reagan National Airport is situated in a really interesting spot. It's right there on the Potomac, and it's kind of at a bend in the river. And so if you're coming from the north, you kind of the plane has to take a hard right angle to kind of get down to the airport. If you're coming from the south, you come up and follow the river that way. But there's so much air traffic right in that space because it's not just Reagan. You've got the military bases, you've got the White House, you've got all sorts of things right there. And so much air traffic. And, we were talking before the show started about how there's been a push to have even more flights in there.
Well, imagine, you described it so well right there. And I don't, every year we take our interns from the Hinckley Institute out. We get them on the boat to Mount Vernon. And that's one of the things you look over at Reagan National, which is just right off the Potomac. And just every 2 minutes, a flight is coming, and you think about what's happening, from these members of Congress. I mean, this is where the push comes to expand because it's an ever-increasing amount of effort to increase the number of flights because every member of Congress they come in and they come out a lot.
And it's right there by the city.
This is the airport.
I mean, it is right there. You get off the plane, you get on the metro, or you hop in a car, and you're in D.C. proper.
This is the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, it is where you want to land, and so a lot of these members of Congress, for those that want to, pull out their maps and see, that you got Dulles, you've got BWI, these are the other sorts of places you land. But if you want to be close to D.C., you're like 15 minutes into the hotels or to your office, this is where you land. And that's why so many members of Congress want to expand the number. I know Utah, our members of our delegation have wanted to expand it. I've wanted to. You got one flight out of Salt Lake into D.C. a day. It's like at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And you got one flight back home from Reagan National, and it's at like 5:15. So that's it for Utah. So everyone says, well, we want to expand the number of flights there too, which is why just a small example of the pressure that is being put to increase the number of flights.
And there's not a lot of space to expand. I mean, again, it's right there on the river, but you've got all of Arlington right next to it, and there's nowhere to go. There's a park just north of the airport, Gravelly Point. Yeah. You can go to Gravelly Point, and you're right there as the planes take off and land. It's kind of a fun thing to do. I did a lot when I was in D.C., but there's going to be a lot of effort into figuring out how to navigate this going forward.
Yeah, so the safety issues, and then what do you do with an airport that has a need to expand but probably can't based on the geography and the safety implications as well. I mean, keep in mind, this wasn't just a matter of can we just get more planes through there. This is a safety issue also. I mean, you're going over our monuments. It's like...
Yeah, exactly. You're flying over those monuments. And this wasn't just commercial aircraft. It was a commercial aircraft that collided with a military aircraft. And the implications there, I think, are also going to be really, really difficult going forward. So anyway, well, next up on Inside Sources, stay tuned. We are going to keep you posted on what happens more with this as things progress. But next up, we're going to shift into our normal political discussion and take a look at the Senate confirmation hearings for Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. So stay tuned.
The newest part of your morning, and still so familiar.
When you wake up and listen to a radio show, it's like you're a part of a family. You're listening in on people you know, and it's magnificent that Andy Farnsworth is sitting in the chair because he's someone we know.
Utah's Morning News. Andy Farnsworth joins Amanda Dixon to bring you important news in the car. 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
At JCW's, we think tipping might be getting a little out of hand. Like when you're asked to tip at the register before you've even been served. Or when you're at the yogurt shop and find yourself serving yourself. And don't even get us started on frosted tips making a comeback. That's why at JCW's, when you pay for a 3rd-pound ranch bacon cheeseburger, that's what you pay. And no one at the register is going to stare longingly at you while you awkwardly maneuver through the tip screen for food you don't even have yet. Honestly, we're just happy to see you at any of our 5 locations in Provo, South Jordan, Lehigh, Harriman, and American Fork. So come on in and enjoy some quality time and great food with family and friends. And we promise, we won't be pushing you for a tip.
Hey, this is Chris with JCW's, and we just want to say thank you, and especially to our loyal customers. We want you to know that at JCW's, your business is all the tip we need. JCW's, quality and a lot of it.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Right now we have huge delays on northbound I-15 from 114 South in Draper up to the South Interchange in Murray. Now, prior to these delays, well, after the delays, I'm seeing road crews going by, and they are dusting and the right lanes of northbound I-15 in Murray due to the earlier hazmat spill that we had after 53rd South, which still has 2 right lanes of traffic blocked. Once the crews are able to get that right lane taken care of, they'll let traffic start moving again. But right now, it is a very, very slow roll if you're going from Draper to the South Interchange. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now, save 50% on the new Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. An important message about your timeshare from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. Contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance, and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about timeshare cancellation.
Call 800-292-7788. 800-292-7788.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Senate confirmation hearings continue on Capitol Hill today as senators grill President Trump's nominees about their past. Today, Tulsi Gabbard spoke to the Senate Intelligence Committee, and Kash Patel was grilled. He is up there to be the next FBI director. So we're going to talk about this. First of all, I want to play a couple of sound clips, and then we're going to chat about these. So let's listen first to one of Tulsi Gabbard's opening statements.
Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet. not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet.
Okay. Interesting. Jason, tell me, what are your reactions to that?
Well, it's interesting. We're seeing this through numerous confirmation hearings right now. Of course, the Democrats are not happy about what happened. They're not going to love any pick that comes. So you get the fireworks naturally that come from that. But it's interesting to talk about whose puppet they are. This is sort of a recurring theme, some different words, but we saw it a couple times today. We've seen it through all these confirmation hearings. And, some of this is just really tied to the Democrats trying to say, well, you are a puppet to the person who nominated you, and so it's very interesting to see, even when Trump's name is not necessarily mentioned, that's the hidden part of, well, maybe not hidden.
It's not hidden at all.
Not hidden. It's just there, right?
Yeah,
so,
it's
all right,
there.
who's going to tell you what to do, and who are you going to listen to? And that's that's what you get with these confirmation hearings, and you're not going to get an answer from them that the Democrats are going to be happy with. So it's just naturally going to be very interesting to watch.
Now, it's interesting with Tulsi Gabbard. Yesterday on the show, we were talking about RFK and how he has changed positions many times. He's changed parties. Tulsi Gabbard is also in that same arena, at least as far as switching parties, right? She was a Democrat, was in the House of Representatives as a Democrat, then became an independent, and now is a Republican and fully endorsed Trump when he ran this year. But I feel like the pushback on Tulsi Gabbard has been different than the pushback on RFK. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because her record is very different.
Yeah.
I guess there can be a little bit of a difference of the things you switch your opinions about.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's just where in people's minds you say, well, it could be on this one political issue. You change your mind. I might not disagree with you, but I understand that. But you get some of these really hot issues, like take for example something like vaccinations, for example, like that. All of a sudden you've got something where you say, well, I have ammunition to explore this much further. Some changes require a lot more explanation in the minds of some people. And, of course, that's what you exploit with someone like RFK.
Right.
Which is what they're doing, which is a little different than, on the national scene where you're a Republican, where you're a Democrat. I think in the minds of people who are listening, it's a little different than where are you on vaccinations? How will you run these important health issues for the United States? And I think that's why you're seeing the fireworks.
Well, and one of the questions that we talked about yesterday was, does it even matter if they're going to go in there and ultimately implement Trump's policies? Does it even matter where they've been in the past?
Well, they certainly have one person at the top right now that's going to direct a lot of that. I mean, Tulsi, of course, said, I'm not anyone's puppet. And I think there's a certain amount of truth to the fact that if President Trump appoints you, you have a policy you're going to try to help put into place, but they still have sort of really important agencies to run, and they have some accountability to Congress also, and in some of those, in many cases. So there's still a check and a balance right there, which is why most of these people are going to be confirmed. There gets to be a lot of political statements that get to be made. People will fundraise off of those statements, and so it's just the theatrics of the process itself. So Trump will have a certain policy, but we shouldn't forget very narrow margins in the House and in the Senate. And so when it comes to some of the laws surrounding these policies, there's still room to be found.
Yeah, interesting. I think I want to come back to that in a second, but let's first listen to a clip from the hearing with Kash Patel. Now, Kash Patel is Trump's pick for FBI director. He was grilled by the Senate Judiciary Committee at his confirmation hearing today. And really, a lot of his testimony was just insisting that he did not have an enemies list. And for the FBI director, this is a really big thing. Let's listen to a little bit of his statement.
Every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not going to accept that answer, because if you can't commit that those FBI agents will be protected from political retribution, we can't accept you as FBI director.
All FBI employees will be protected against political retribution.
Those individuals deserve to be protected from Trump retribution. That was your first test. You failed it.
All right. So, back on this kind of puppet thing, right? These folks serve at the pleasure of the president. They're there because the president has appointed them. The Senate has to confirm, but really they are there for that reason. Now, you mentioned a minute ago that, we've got the midterms coming up, right? And we've got things that are going to be happening. Do you see any of these picks influencing the direction of the midterms in a year from now?
It's interesting. So they could. So they could influence that, but in terms of what they do. But what you're seeing right now on the national stage is political posturing, using them for what they could do and couldn't do. If you can start even right now, sort of say, I'm worried about what you're going to do is nothing but political retribution. You got the top law enforcement agency in the country, or you start going after people for political reasons. That's just gold if you're the opposition. Is to throw those kinds of things out. So I think that when you're hearing these, it's a little bit about the qualifications of a person, but it's a sad reality that I never forget. A lot of this is sort of the political theater of it. Also, you're trying to get them to say things. You're trying to, they are trying to get people to say certain things or to make certain promises or assurances, which is a little bit less about now I have you on record, a little more about the politics of it. But these positions are, without question, very significant. The person that runs the FBI has a lot of discretion, a lot of influence, and so that's why you're seeing that as well. But you have the functioning in the job, and you have the politics of the job, and what we're hearing mostly is the other side.
It was really interesting when I worked on the Senate Finance Committee. I helped the committee prep the members for hearings, and particularly Senator Hatch as chair. And I was surprised at how many times, really, when the attorneys on the committee would say, oh, yeah, we've already spoken to these folks. We've already vetted the witnesses. We already know what they're going to say. Here's a written copy of their testimony. And, we're putting it in binders so that the senators can read it and take a look at it. But a lot of this stuff is already known ahead of time before you walk into these hearings. These hearings are often not, it's not like this is the first time these senators have ever heard this information or vetted these folks. And especially with a lot of these picks, they've been going around, Kash Patel has met with others before, Tulsi Gabbard has met with others, RFK, Pete Hegseth. They've been meeting with all of these senators before they even show up to this hearing.
So when you were doing this in the past, and I've done this as well, and I even know personally from some of the things that happen in some of these current situations, you are spending the time in the back room. These people, they're sitting down taking the heat, but they know the votes already.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean, there's no secret here, which is why it's the theater of it. When Gates was up, everyone it became not even a good secret. We knew exactly what the concerns were going to be, and we knew who was going to vote no, which is why you prepared them so well. Which is why you watch these things with a little bit of a filter on right there that we know the end result.
Absolutely. So along those lines, let's listen to our own Utah Senator John Curtis, who spoke with Jeff Kaplan about the confirmation hearings, and he's kind of talking about hearings generally. Let's listen to how he approaches this process.
Some people view this as, why wouldn't you just do what the president wanted to do? And I say, look, think about a board of directors. And if we do our job right, we're actually helping the president by vetting these people. Our job is to give him advice and consent. People sometimes forget the advice part of that. So, Mr. President, you need to know if you move forward with this, this is what we're seeing. And I think that's what I know that's what my constitutional responsibility is. And I also think it's what the people of Utah want me to do. Not in any way necessarily against President Trump, but in harmony with him to properly vet these people that are going to play a very important part of his success.
I think that's an interesting statement from Senator Curtis, right? The Senate's job is to confirm, but also to advise the president. Yep. And that's how he's approaching this.
Well, that is their responsibility, advise and consent, for which, some take very seriously. I've talked personally to now Senator Curtis, about this particular role. And the day he got into office, he had to start vetting some of these candidates. And we all know he has been very clear that he's not just a rubber stamp on anything, and which is why I think what he said is particularly true for him. It's consent, but he does see he has a role to advise, and I think that's a pretty good responsibility. That's how the Senate kind of keeps their responsibilities in line and keeps their power as well. You're going to give us someone, and we're going to make sure at least there's some minimum amount of kind of responsibility and skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when Insight Sources returns, we're going to come back to Utah and look at medication pricing protections. A bill is being run through this legislative session, and it's getting some pretty fierce pushback from outside PACs. We're going to talk through the whole thing next.
Good afternoon. It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top local story. A bill is taking aim at the parents of children who commit crimes with guns, unsecured guns left in the home. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
It's influenced by a bill out of Florida that penalizes parents whose children commit crimes with guns they knowingly did not store in a safe place. State Representative Andrew Stoddard says it's not to take aim at parents and families who are victims of tragedies. It's very specific. The parents would have to have stored it recklessly, and the child would have had to take it out in public and intentionally committed a crime with it.
Stoddard says they're working with gun lobbyists on the language of the bill, and it's not an attack on the Second Amendment. Senator John Curtis is among those in the U.S. Senate introducing a bill to keep kids off social media. He says the bipartisan legislation would set a minimum age of 13 to use social media platforms and prevent social media companies targeting content toward users under the age of 17. A great day for the markets. All the major indices up by more than 0.5%. The Dow was up 242 points, sitting at 44,955. S&P up by 42, and the NASDAQ, it's up 97 points. Coming up, how long will these warmer temperatures last? We'll check KSL weather next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Kathy.
And Jason from Window World.
Jason, other window companies are offering their big specials again. What's our special?
Our special is the same low price every day for every customer all year round.
Wow, Window World is different.
We don't jack up the price to offer a phony discount like other companies.
No pressure, no games. Hey, call Window World 801-281-8111.
Or check windowworldutah.com.
Window World, simply the best for
And
less.
as Doug always said,
that's no baloney. Did you know the Social Security Trust Fund is projected to run out of money in less than 10 years? Yes, 10 years. And according to Barron's, this could cost the average couple $16,500 every year in lost income. Now multiply that by 10 or 20 years, and it could easily add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why it's critical you have the right strategy to file for Social Security. Learn more in a free report, your guide to filing for Social Security in 2025 and beyond. It's from Boss Retirement Solutions. If you've saved more than $200,000 and have not filed for Social Security, get your free report now by calling 801-251-1046. 801-251-1046. That number again, 801-251-1046.
Boss Retirement Solutions is not affiliated with the Social Security Administration.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? I think my battery's dead. With free battery testing and charging, we can help you get back on the road.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
So what if I need a new one? We have the right Duralast battery for you, only at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
And what about my old battery? We can recycle it right here at America's #1 battery destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Dave and Dujanovic.
If you're driving to work or you're driving the kids to a soccer game, we're your in-car companions.
People will come up to me and say, "Oh, I talk to you every day. You don't realize it because I'm talking at the radio, but I talk to you every day."
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
We do have emergency traffic. It's brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Ricky Meese, what's going on?
Northbound I-15 still a mess. Now, emergency crews are still wrapping up this hazmat spill on northbound I-15 after 53rd South. Only one right lane is blocked. We also had UHP holding back all traffic in order to dust the freeway and clean up whatever was left on the road in that right lane of traffic. We do have UHP releasing traffic now, and it is moving northbound on I-15. However, we have residual slow-and-go delays that stretch from Sandy at the Southtown Mall, 106 South, up to just past 53rd South. Once you're past where that right lane is still blocked, you are finally good to go. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And the warming trend continues over the next couple of days. Today we have temps in the low 40s, and by Sunday we will hit the 50s, but with it we will also see some stormy weather this weekend. Right now it's sunny and 45 degrees. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
A large National Political Action Committee, or PAC, is campaigning against a bill currently sitting in a Utah Senate committee. The bill, SB 69, Medication Amendments, is being sponsored by State Senator Evan Vickers. His bill addresses the 340B drug program. I'm here with Jason Perry, our guest host today. Now, Jason, I understand that you've done some work in the 340B area. Tell us about that.
Well, I should say that as we had this conversation up front. It's such an important one to have. I represent the University of Utah Medical Hospital and the health system there. And, of course, that's one of our safety net hospitals in the state of Utah. So they receive 340B funds as part of their operation. So it's just important to put that out. We're going to talk with some bill sponsors today on this bill, but just so everyone knows, I'm coming from a perspective where I'm connected to this issue in some way.
Absolutely. Well, we have State Representative Steve Elison with us, who is going to help us understand more what this 340B drug program is, what this Senate bill is, and what this political action committee is kind of arguing against. So thanks for being with us, Representative Elison.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, I know that you are also well versed in this, and if I understand, you're going to be the House sponsor for this bill as well. Is that right?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit, what is the 340B drug pricing program?
It was a great program that Congress created last century, and was a way to actually save taxpayers money and provide better patient access and care for lower income populations such as people on Medicaid. So they basically said, look, Congress said our Medicaid rates are low, so if pharmaceutical companies want to do business with Medicare and Medicaid, they have to agree to sell drugs, qualifying drugs to what we call them safety net hospitals, like rural hospitals and federally qualified health centers and other hospitals that take care of a disproportionate share of Medicaid patients. You have to sell them the drugs at a lower cost. And they readily agreed to that. Well, that program worked well for a couple of decades, but the pharmaceutical companies have just continued putting restrictions, greatly enhancing their profits, but it's really hurting the hospitals that are out there serving some of our most needy citizens. So this bill simply says, states reserve the right to run how they do drug distribution. It doesn't run afoul of anything currently in federal law. A whole bunch of other states have passed this bill, and it simply says, we're going to kind of reserve the right to run the business and run the state the way we see fit, and not let the shots be called by out-of-state pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, Representative, I know you want to talk about this article that was in the paper today about this too, but it's a complicated system right here. Maybe you could talk about how this works. I mentioned on with the University of Utah health system, but it's not just the university. There are other entities in Utah that are impacted. Maybe talk about how that works so people can actually see how this plays out, without sort of the political side of it, just how it actually works, particularly when it comes to things like contract pharmacies around the state. Because, of course, Senator Vickers is from the southern part of the state of Utah and also a pharmacist.
Yeah, so great question. So under federal law, if somebody goes into a hospital emergency room, regardless of their ability to pay, that hospital is required to serve that patient. And if that treatment involves the administration of a very expensive drug, the hospital has to pay for it. So systems such as Intermountain Healthcare, which is the largest in the state, University of Utah, our federally qualified health centers that help a lot of our remote areas and lower income individuals. Also, like Primary Children's Hospital benefits from this. Well, they have to serve the patients that walk through the door no matter what, and they gladly do it. Well, every year the hospitals in Utah give probably close to $1 billion in charity care, and it's the funds actually from the 340B program that helps pay for a significant portion of that. And so this bill is really about, do we want to allow our hospitals to continue serving these patients from a charitable basis, or do we want to let out-of-state companies, make more money? I mean, to put it in real simplistic terms. For instance, one program I know that the University of Utah has is if somebody comes to a visit there and they say, the doctor says, I'm going to prescribe you this drug, and the patient says, I don't have the ability to pay for it. They have a program that says, you know what, if that's the case, we'll cover the drug for you. And they do it because of this 340B program. We don't want to see those kind of programs go away because at the end of the day, that hurts patients.
So, Representative Eliason, I want to touch on this a little bit more. You were talking about how you want to try and preserve that in Utah, and that's part of the point of the bill. But I'm curious to know where the bill came from. Why now? Why is this bill coming up in the legislature this year? And what's the goal this year? Is it just kind of looking down the road and seeing all the pushback from pharmaceutical companies, or did something happen to sort of spur this on?
What happened, let's say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the pharmaceutical companies started slowly chipping away saying, well, we're not going to ship you certain drugs as part of this program. And Congress hasn't tried to clarify the law because, as we know, back there things are most often in gridlock. So, under the concept of federalism, a number of states, actually mostly red states, stepped up and said, you know what, we can actually fill the void of kind of, the guidance on this, and we can clarify. It's the state's rights to determine drug distribution under the Commerce Clause. And so a bunch of states started doing it, and in all those states, the pharmaceutical companies sued the states, and the states are pretty much winning almost all of the cases. And so part of it is trying to just push back and say, you know what, we can either kind of act or be acted upon, and we want to reserve the right to do what's best for Utah citizens. And in this case, it's to say we're going to push back against these restrictions.
Thanks, Representative. Maybe you can take a moment. We just have a couple of minutes left to talk about this group that has attacked this bill. It was posted in the Salt Lake Tribune today. It's about a PAC called Building America's Future. As the article says, a self-described pro-MAGA conservative nonprofit organization. Talk about this for just a minute, because this might be just the first we see of many efforts on this bill for this session.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for listeners on this is that when you see something on the internet and you see, it was paid for by a group to make America amazing and bring back motherhood and apple pie. I mean, literally, that could be the name of the group. And you're like, well, that sounds like a good group. Well, a lot of times these groups are funded by, it's oftentimes dark money because they don't have to disclose where it comes from. But it could be funded literally by a single interest group that will profit if a certain bill is passed or isn't passed. So a lot of times in politics, they say, follow the money. And in this case, they don't know who's funding this. But arguably, I don't know anybody who could make an argument that there's anybody in America that would want to fund something like this unless they benefited from it financially. In this case, there's just one industry that benefits from that. So I think we have to be very careful about, reading the messages we see in the media and online, and, what is the motive, who's funding it, and who's paying for it. In this case, we don't know. We've got a pretty good guess, though.
Yeah, and I know that there's been a lot of speculation that Elon Musk has given tens of $millions to this PAC. Unclear if he has anything to do with this itself, but like you said, it's certainly one to watch. So thank you so much for joining us, State Representative Steve Eliason. We're going to be looking at this further, so thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thanks to both of you. Bye-bye.
All right, next on Inside Sources, should Election Day be a legitimate holiday? One state lawmaker thinks so. We will chat with him about his bill, and we're going to ask you about it after these messages.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Emergency traffic continues on KSL News Radio, brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Well, if you're stuck in slowdowns northbound I-15, you are surrounded by many friends on the freeway. It's all due to a right lane blocked from an earlier hazmat spill in Murray. And that's northbound I-15 just after 5300 South. Even though traffic is moving again, we still have a lot of backups to about 106 South, with the worst of the speeds going from just right around 90th South up to 53rd South. So again, you may want to consider avoiding this part of northbound I-15 and use an alternate. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 18 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 30, 60, or 90 days from a station contest or event may not be eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com/contests.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Jackson Hewitt makes taxes feel like a yacht rock song.
April breeze, give me my biggest tax refund, please. You, me, and a lifetime accuracy guarantee.
And now get $100 just to try Jackson Hewitt. Does your tax person do that?
Say goodbye to that no guarantee tax guy.
Ready to sail through tax season? Go to Jackson Hewitt and you'll be... Limited time offer for new clients. Participating locations only. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
An airliner heads for Alaska with 101 passengers and crew. Then, somewhere over the Gulf of Alaska, Flight 293 slams into the icy water below.
Even if all 4 engines quit, it just doesn't fall out of the sky.
No bodies were recovered. Loved ones had no closure and were left to wonder.
What happened to Flight 293?
Unsolved Histories What Happened to Flight 293 is available now. Follow us at unsolvedhistoriespod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Eye on the Hill 2025 special coverage on Inside Sources.
Our special coverage of Utah's legislative session continues with a look at a bill that would designate Election Day as a state holiday. This is something that's been talked about for a long, long time now. Some states actually do have Election Day set aside as a state holiday, but Utah is not one of those. We have State Representative Ryan. We are going to be talking to State Representative Ryan Wilcox about a bill that would make Election Day a state holiday. But Jason, tell me, what do you think about this? And actually, our listeners, we want to know what you think about this too. So as we talk here during this segment, text us at 57500. Tell us if you think that Election Day should be a state holiday.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what everyone thinks about that here in the state. I'll tell you, Utah is a state where people tend to participate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got all sorts of ways to send in the ballot. I guess the question is, do you have a state holiday and like where you
and mail in
your ballot?
Right.
It might end up being those days where you celebrate America. I suppose, or something like that. But I think that the legislature is looking for ways to make sure people understand just how important this is. But of course, you have this bill on Election Day. Say the first Monday in November is a state holiday. That's what they're going to call Election Day, as the holiday itself. But there's also just so much to talk about when it comes to elections and efforts from our legislature to sort of work on that legislation. Maybe we can even get Representative Wilcox to talk about that a little bit today, because he's sort of been someone who's really been digging in on elections in the state.
And that's one of the big things that we're going to see or expecting to see out of the legislative session this year. There's been a lot of talk over this last year. The 2024 cycle generated a lot of discussion about how elections work. And so now we've got State Representative Ryan Wilcox on the phone. Representative, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about this bill and the motivation behind making this a state holiday.
Yeah, I think it started years ago. I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to voting. And the day my oldest son was born, it happened to be Election Day. And I remember he was born around noon, and around 5 o'clock, I said goodbye to my in-laws in there. And I think they super regretted the decision my wife made to marry me at that point, because they said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I've got to go vote. It's Election Day." And they were so offended, and I said, I'm sorry, baby's fine, right? You guys are good, everybody's good, and it's Election Day. I'll be back in an hour, and that's what that's how I kind of just felt about it. How important it is that we do that, and that is very difficult for a lot of people, and not because they had a baby that day. It's very difficult just because it's difficult to get off work. There's time to do all of the things that one has to do in a given day. And we've tried to decompress that by spreading out the times. There's been some mail-in voting things. And at the same time, we've had enough issues with security and other concerns that we've been reminded about, that really worked pretty well for us for a lot of years. If we can take that American sacrament of participation in our elections, of civic participation, and set aside a time when we all agree that's what we're going to do. We're going to come together at the local elementary school, just like we used to, and be able to cast that ballot, look at each other in the eye, and say hi to our neighbors again, and do that. There's a lot of reasons behind that, I think, for my colleagues, but for me, it's mostly about kind of returning back to what worked and setting aside a time to make it easier for people to do that.
Yeah, Representative, it seems like you kind of become our election legislator. You seem to know so much about it and are always working on increasing participation, which is what I'm wondering about with this bill, and maybe another one we can talk about too is about how you say getting back to sort of the origins of sorts, but your efforts and your thoughts about increasing participation in the state.
Yeah, we get better outcomes when more of us are informed, when more of us pay attention, when we do that, when we actually weigh in. I think we get better policy, we have better elections in general. So as far as whatever we can do to encourage that, I'm going to be open to those ideas. This is one that's been on my mind for a long time, and I've kind of asked why we didn't do this, why this already wasn't a law, and most of those reasons are kind of excuses. And so I finally filed a bill, and here we are.
Now, our producer Andy Cupp spoke on the David Dujanovic show this morning about this bill and sort of previewed our discussion on it. And there were some listeners that had questions, and some of them were questions along the lines of, how does this work with mail-in voting? Does this cancel out mail-in voting? Could they work together? Do private companies have to give employees a day off? How does this affect schools? I know I threw like 3 questions at you there, but how does this work logistics?
Logistics of it. Yeah, I think I'll try to answer those, and if you remind me if I miss one. But how it affects private companies, I think it would affect just like it does right now with a lot of state holidays. Many, are still working depending on the industry, but then many also honor those and give their employees off, which will increase the opportunities. Certainly not just government that is in that place of honoring a state holiday. It gets worked into benefit packages, and I think it's important that our civic leaders, our business leaders, support that. That is one of the critical functions of civic society, is that we participate in our elections process. What were some of the other questions for me? And
schools was another one, and then mail-in voting. We've actually had a lot of texts come in about do we even need this if we have mail-in voting? Yeah,
I mean, that's a good question, and certainly we do. We still have people. I know in my community, while it's a lot like to do the mail-in voting, there's a lot of lines. If you guys remember the reporting, I think you were probably doing a lot of it about lines that went way too long on election day. And a lot of that's driven because we've reduced the number of polling places. There's clearly a demand amongst our constituents to participate in person and to continue not just that tradition, but all of the other parts of this related to security and making sure that my vote's counted by participating on election day, showing our ID. And so I think there's an easy place to land there. A lot of this is probably just, opening up a few more options for people to vote in person. I think that time gap that they'll have where they can for sure do that, it helps with that. And then there's actually a proposal coming from the House. Now, this isn't my bill, so I'll just give you a basic summary, where ballots would still be mailed out, but you would have to return them in person. Now, that could be, at any number of places, but it already works now. We just have too few places, and the hours are too limited. So I don't think it's really in conflict with that, but I do think it encourages people and allows those who want to vote in person like we used to.
Hey, Representative, maybe in our last minute, in a couple seconds, I wonder, one of your other bills on elections dropped today. Maybe just in 1 minute, talk about this House Bill 369, which looks like it creates an elections office, an independent state agency that will have the responsibility for all elections that is currently inside the lieutenant governor's office. This is kind of a big one, so maybe just give us 1 minute on this.
Yeah, I think the critical part to that is the creation of an elections office that is completely independent of any office overseeing an election that they're a part of. It not only removes the perception issue, it is truly independent. At this point, it is overseen by our elected county clerks who primarily run all of our elections. We have professionals who are elected to do that, overseeing the office. The function otherwise is basically the exact same as it is now. We will simply no longer it will be a truly independent office rather than being connected to a gubernatorial office.
Well, thank you so much, Representative Wilcox, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for joining. We have more coming up in the second hour. We're going to dig into some national political stories, another look at immigration, and a discussion on the future of national debt. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story. The National Transportation Safety Board is giving an update on their progress into the investigation of a mid-air plane collision that killed 67 people in D.C. last night. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy says they have been letting first responders on the scene take priority as they continue the recovery effort.
And so this, for us, is our first full day on scene. With our entire crew coming together, we have about nearly 50 people on scene, and in addition to our resources back at headquarters in our labs and throughout the agency.
She says the NTSB will stay on scene as long as it takes to determine what happened. The D.C. plane crash is the 40th aviation accident this year. KSL News Radio's Vril Johansson breaks down the numbers.
The National Transportation Safety Board reports 6 of the 40 crashes were fatal. Those numbers include crashes from commercial and private flights. For a bit of perspective, the Federal Aviation Administration reports there are around 45,000 flights each day across the country. Here in Utah, there haven't been any aviation crashes this year.
There were 26 crashes in Utah last year. Only 3 of them were fatal. Markets losing momentum headed into the close. The Dow still ending in positive territory, up 168 points, sitting at 44,882. We are enjoying nice warm temperatures. How long will they last? We'll check the weather coming up next. KSL News Time 2:01.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Is your financial advisor offering you up to a 30% upfront bonus? Are they promising you up to 10% growth per year guaranteed for your retirement income? If not, you need a new financial advisor. I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. If you plan to retire within the next 10 years, don't wait only to find out it's too late. I've seen hard-working folks like you retire only to be required to go back to work, all because their advisor told them guarantees like these were too good to be true. They're not. That's up to $30,000 up front or up to $10,000 per year on $100,000, all guaranteed for retirement income. Don't work when you're supposed to be retired. And if any financial advisor tells you it's too good to be true, they simply don't have the options we do. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Things are just better with a partner or a friend. And when it comes to losing weight, Soda Weight Loss makes it easier than ever to let go of the weight for good.
I'd been wanting to lose weight, and I tried on my own. I'd been seeing things for soda, and so we talked to the nutritionist and loved every bit of it. You know, I couldn't be happier, honestly, with the result.
Join with a partner and only pay for one. Imagine achieving all your weight loss goals together with your partner, and you only pay for one.
I've let go 50 pounds, and I don't have the cravings that I used to have.
I would definitely recommend soda. It's because it works. I even recommended it to my daughter, and she's on her journey now.
Just go and look at the almost 9,000 Google reviews about Soda Weight Loss. Lose the weight without injections, without medications, without hunger. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-275-1728. That's 800-275-1728.
Emergency traffic coverage continues. Traffic and weather brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Ricky, what's happening?
Well, we wanted to update drivers who may be still in their cars trying to get through this mess. We are seeing improvement northbound I-15. However, we still have that right lane blocked in Murray due to the earlier hazmat situation. The freeway was treated and it's safe to go on. However, we still have residual delays back to 90th South. Even though speeds are improving, you want to add an extra 10, maybe 15 minutes to get from Sandy through Murray. Looking for the perfect suit for that special occasion? Mr. Mac has the best suit selection for any occasion. And get winter clearance pricing today. Visit their 9 convenient locations or MrMac.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We are enjoying the sun today, but the clouds moving in tomorrow. That means 70% chance of showers over the weekend, but the temperature is still climbing. We are expected to reach a high of near 60 degrees by early next week. Right now, 45 degrees, sunny skies. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Believe it or not, Guantanamo Bay is back in the news as President Trump directs the Pentagon and Department of Homeland Security to house criminals set to be deported from the United States. It's part of his plans to crack down on illegal immigration and secure the southern border. Welcome back to the second hour of Inside Sources. I'm Erin Ryder here with our guest host, Jason Perry. Jason, it's so lovely to have you here.
Always good to be with you, Erin. Thank you. It's been a fun, interesting conversation today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. President Trump. All right. So first of all, let's just explain what's happening here. What he wants to do is he wants to use a migrant holding facility at Guantanamo Bay to house up to 30,000 criminal migrants deported from the United States. Now, these are, as he has said, high priority criminal aliens, and this is intended to be, according to now Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, a way station for these criminal undocumented immigrants, basically. It's a way station for them until the administration finds other countries to take them. What do you think about this?
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, I think they're trying to answer the question that have been asked by many, which is, you've said this is the Trump administration, and by executive order, almost immediately, you're going to deport a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so the next question is, well, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
We already know some countries are being more accommodating than others. But also, there's just that practical, logistical question. People are saying, really, can you do that? I think this is their effort, I guess, to try to answer that question. So I thought it was interesting is Hegseth said, this is a temporary transit. Mm-hmm. I think that's what he called this, where you can put thousands and tens of thousands, humanely before moving them. So I think that this is maybe a logistics question of sorts, I guess, is what they're trying to do. But really, they're just trying to answer these questions. Say you have this intent. How are you actually going to effectuate that? And I think this is one of those things. You say, well, they were looking at a base, and they said you have space here, so we'll use it. That's what it appears to be.
Yeah. Now, some of the pushback has been that the space that they have has not been used in years, and so it's not even really fit for use. I think this is an interesting thing because we've seen the Trump administration push really hard, really fast on certain things. We saw it with pulling federal funding. We've seen it with immigration. We've seen it with, a whole host of things where he pushes really fast and then runs into the roadblocks of practicality and implementation. I wonder if this is going to be one of those same things.
Well, that's almost always the case, is the implementation effort, right? So you have these great policy objectives, and someone's got to actually grab those and find a way to make it work in terms of logistics and otherwise. And this is so interesting because many of us, political circles, but even if you just paid attention over the years, Guantanamo Bay has a certain amount of, vision in our minds about what we think that is and the kind of people that are there. And the administration is saying, don't worry, it's not that.
Yeah.
All right. That's not where they're going to be. They're not, housed with other people or terrorists or things like that. It's just interesting. All these articles are talking about, hey, I think the administration wants to say this is just a temporary holding space. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll see how that works.
Do you believe that?
Well, I'm not sure. It's as you were just talking about. It's entirely about how you can deliver on these promises. And if you are going to deport a bunch of people, which the administration has said, I mean, where do you put them?
Mm-hmm.
How do you deport them practically? So that's just, it's interesting that you make a decision and then try to figure it out later. This is a few days after an executive order when we're starting to hear about how they might do it.
I wonder if some of this too has come from the fact that, the whole incident where they sent a plane full of criminal migrants down to Colombia, right? And Colombia said, nope, we're not going to take them. And Initially. And now they are. But there was this initial pushback to say, no, we're not going to take these people. And Trump has since then come out and said, you're going to take it. I think his quote was something like, you're going to take it whether or not you like, and you're going to like it or something like that, which is a very, Trump thing to say. But I wonder if this is also we need something in the middle.
Yeah.
We can't just throw everybody onto a plane immediately and send them back. But, I don't know. Logistically, I see this getting complicated very fast.
It clearly is. And maybe the example we just talked about is why. You start seeing some countries like Colombia pushing back initially. And you start looking at, countries around the world and I don't know if there was a perception there would just be willingness, outright. But the reality is in some places that's not going to be the case. And so there has to be some alternative plan while those things get worked on, I suppose. So I think that's what you're going to see right here. I think this is the first of many practical things. As you look at executive order after executive order, we had one just yesterday as you're watching through the world, and this is a little bit the higher ed, but you have an executive order saying we're freezing funding.
Yeah.
So you have these high level policy objectives, but the implementation is really a critical part of it. And just like we're seeing on immigration, we're seeing it in other places where you really have to have thought out fully the implementation aspects of these policy objectives.
Yeah. And like you mentioned a minute ago, the idea is that this is a separate detention center. They're not throwing this in with people who are already at Guantanamo Bay, but critics have been vocal about the fact that they're concerned that this becomes just another black hole where people will sit there for years and years and years and, kind of get lost in the process.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the sort of the balancing act the administration has to really follow. You say you might be able to have people hear and believe it's very temporary, but if that's the statement, it does need to be that way because public sentiment can turn on these things very quickly, particularly when you start having like brand names like Guantanamo Bay, has a pretty sordid history in the minds of people. So if they say it's going to be temporary, it really does need to be that. And maybe it's instructive of other executive orders as well.
Yeah. So Vince Warren, who is the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Rights, he is concerned about this. And one of the things he's concerned about is that if this facility if they put people there now without doing anything to upgrade the facility and make it livable, really, it could create a situation where you're giving people the opportunity to actually file lawsuits around the conditions of their confinement, which creates an entirely new level of chaos around the immigration standpoint. If you have people who aren't even U.S. citizens who are being detained on their way to deportation, who may now file lawsuits around the conditions of their containment.
Yeah, so that's the danger is that those things become the story.
Yeah.
Those sort of co-opt these other policy objectives. If you look at this immigration issue, sort of, just looking at from a neutral filter here, that was a top priority for many people in the country in terms of how they voted in this last election.
No question.
So you look at that, and so that's the high level you need to address. This is saying what might have been said to the administration. There needs to be something done about immigration. This is sort of what people tend to vote on. So that can be the story where you can be in lockstep, or it could be the alternative is the implementation is so bad that we lose sight of the policy objectives. So that's just sort of, and you're so closely connected to politics. I mean, have you seen this in your career? You say the policy is eaten up by the failures of implementation.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I think most people who go into office have the best of intentions, whether they're trying to get things done, right? They want to go. They want to do policy. They're there for the policy. In fact, I even spoke to one legislator not too long ago who said, I'm so glad the campaign is over because I just want to deal with policy. But you never really get away from the politics of it. Like, you just can't. And the policy can just be overshadowed entirely if the story gets co-opted in the wrong way.
It's something you know so well, and it's been my experience also, is, I am a fan of good policy. Without question. But good policy does not get put into effect without these political aspects, with the people who are elected to do it. So I can have the most brilliant idea in the world, and if I decide, but my idea is too good to play in the political process, that's a good idea without any actual implementation.
Yeah.
It takes both of those things. This is something in your career also.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question. Well, we're going to be watching this. We're going to see how this goes. We'll see if the message changes and if the story changes as this unfolds. So be sure to tune in as we continue to talk about it. Coming up next, we're going to get an update on the national debt. We chatted about it last month, but things have changed in the first week and a half under President Trump. Or have they not? Stay tuned to find out.
Join the smartest conversation in Utah, the team of analysts and political advisors that make up Inside Sources. Get unfiltered analysis of the new administration, the president's cabinet, and Utah's upcoming legislative session. Inside Sources, weekdays from 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you get coverage options based on how much you want to pay for car insurance. And then you decide how to spend the rest of your money because you're in charge. And right now, you're going to pay for groceries. But you decide what groceries. Just keep in mind you're running out of dishwashing soap. But you decide if you're going to buy that soap. It's just those dishes won't clean themselves, will they? Remember, with Progressive's Name Your Price tool, we'll help you find coverage at a fair price. And then you're in charge. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
I think my battery's dead. With free battery testing and charging, we can help you get back on the road.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
So what if I need a new one? We have the right Duralast battery for you, only at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
And what about my old battery? We can recycle it right here at America's #1 battery destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Hi, this is Kathy.
And Jason from Window World.
Jason, there's a window company giving huge discounts, saying it's the biggest sale ever.
And last month they were offering free labor. That just doesn't add up.
We don't play those games. At Window World, everyone gets the same low price every day.
No pressure, no games, and now we offer siding too.
Call Window World today, 801-281-8111 for 4 windows and a patio door for just $56.12.
And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney. Attention home buyers, want to save hundreds on your mortgage payment or buy a bigger, nicer home? Visit SaveRight.com. This is Rod with the SaveRight team at Realty Path. SaveRight, our name says it all. SaveRight real estate clients often save $300 to $600 a month on their mortgage. Life of loan savings can be over $300,000. SaveRight clients qualify for and buy bigger, nicer homes. Interest rates are around 7%. SaveRight clients can get fixed rates in the 5s. Our affiliate lender makes it all possible. You can even start with a rate in the 2s. If you're buying or selling a home in Utah, save a ton of money. Hire the SaveRight team of realtors. Visit SaveRight.com for more information.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
If you love designer brands and you love clearance, then you're going to love this. Macy's is having a huge designer clearance event right now with incredible new designer markdowns on cold weather styles from BCBG, Hugo Boss, Michael Kors, and more. How big are the markdowns? How about Coach boots for $200 or less? So if you're looking for the things you love all in one place, come in and shop the designer clearance event at Macy's today. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6681. That's 800-583-6681.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up or repair or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As President Trump has taken office and began working on his agenda, one question has come up several times, especially by very conservative members of the Republican Party. How are these decisions going to affect the national debt? Now, last month, before the Trump administration began, we chatted with Mike Murphy from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget to get his predictions. He joins us again today, 10 days into the new presidency, to give an update on his earlier thoughts. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to talk with you.
All right, so just, we have seen projections from the Congressional Budget Office that the national debt continues to move on an upward trajectory. I'm curious to know your thoughts now, a week, 10 days into President Trump's new administration. Do you see that changing at all? With all the stuff that he's done, do you see this affecting the CBO's predictions, or are we still on that train?
So you're right to point out the CBO's predictions. It actually was, I believe, the Friday before the president's inauguration, I think it was. So therefore, it was easy to miss that the CBO came out with these updated projections. And they did show that our budget just is still on an incredibly unsustainable path. It's showing our debt is projected to grow over $22 trillion more over the next decade. That's with doing nothing. That's just based on current projections, and obviously we're already well over $36 trillion in debt. So you're right to highlight those CBO projections. And so, yeah, as in terms of where the administration is in Congress and how it's going to impact this issue, I think it's yet to be seen. As you're referring to, there is a lot of discussion going on right now on how the new administration in Congress is going to advance their agenda, and they are actively looking to use a budget process here in Washington, which is used to avoid the 60-vote threshold needed in the Senate to avoid a filibuster, so they could just pass their agenda with only 51 votes. And they're going to include a lot in this. They're going to try and include tax extensions, immigration, potentially energy policy, and others. And we're keeping an eye out and looking for whether or not that is going to be deficit reducing, because that's what they say they want it to be. But we'll find out soon if that's going to be the case.
Let me just ask, as you look at and you prognosticate of the future as well, we talk about this debt. It's so interesting. You talk about campaign issues as we're going in. A lot of people were talking about inflation, and there are a few members of Congress and people running for office that were talking about the debt. I'm just kind of curious if you could put that in perspective for us, why we really should be paying more attention to that. And since this is sort of your business too, a couple of things that you think you would recommend doing almost immediately to impact the deficits.
So the campaign was no doubt focused on inflation, right? Inflation was, I think, a key voting issue. I think most exit polls were showing that it was perhaps the top voting issue. And there's no doubt that increased deficit spending, including deficit spending over the last few years, contributed to inflation. And the reality is continued deficit spending and mounting debt going forward can also contribute to inflation. So that is going to put upward pressure on inflation if we do not get our fiscal house in order. And therefore, I think it's a clear signal from the public to policymakers to get serious about this. As to your question about what can be done, there's lots of options out there for savings. On our website at the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, you can go there. It's at crfb.org, and we call it a budget offsets bank, which is a list of offsets across all range of areas from health care to tax reform to other areas, including areas, for example, there are lots of executive orders that were put forward by the Biden administration, and the Republican Congress may look to rescind some of those. And when they do that, that can result in savings. These are executive orders across areas of education and healthcare and different things like that. So there's lots of options out there, and it's just a matter if they're going to have the will to be able to come together and enact some of these.
Hey, so Mike, I hope you don't mind a follow-up on that. So the will is the question I have. You know, when you start looking at, through the political lens, I sometimes wonder and have observed over the years that some of these great recommendations that you have just given take a lot of political will, and sometimes the dramatic benefits maybe go beyond my next election. So sometimes that is a paralyzing reality. So I'm just kind of curious about that. How do you get these ideas and people to say, I'm going to plant the seeds today that we will not see the benefit of for at least a little while, that sort of transcends the political cycle?
This is a quaint idea, but it's a reality. It's leadership. It's actually doing hard things despite them not, potentially being politically beneficial. Okay? But another way maybe to put it is, and we have one of our co-chairs is a man by Leon Panetta, who you may know, who's served in various administrations in Congress over the years. And he said that, it often was the case in the past that good governing and actually making some tough choices and actually making some progress can be beneficial politically. I think we've gotten out of that norm, and we got to figure out how to get back to a norm where folks making tough choices and actually showing leadership will be rewarded by the public. I know that's a kind of quaint idea. I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but that's really what's needed, because that's what these are about, is tough choices and trade-offs. That's what budgeting is. That's what people do in their personal budgets. That's what people do in their business budgets. And we need our politicians in Washington to start to do the same thing.
Now, Mike, we have seen President Trump try and do some things over the last 10 days that at least seem like they're in this world. Things like, the federal buyouts for federal employees and his discussions on wanting to reduce the size of the federal government, the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE committee. Do you think that those things are actually going to have an impact, or are they, good for the public, good for sound bites, but not necessarily good for budget, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that on the buyout, for example, we're like others, kind of waiting to see the more details of that. It's just kind of put out in the email just exactly how that's going to work, what the ultimate fiscal implications are of that. It's possible that could have some savings, but it's unclear at this time. The Department of Government Efficiency idea, which seems to be kind of evolving, obviously, it started with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy running it. It was unclear where it was going to be. It now seems like it's going to be housed actually within the White House, taking over an old office that was focused on digital services. And it seems like its scope maybe is being adjusted. It's not maybe going to be as focused as much on big government budget savings ideas in the trillions, but maybe more focused on really reforming technology and efficiency within departments, which can result in savings. It's hard to know how much, but here's the bottom line. The bottom line, we can go back to that CBO report that you were talking about. Our estimates based on those projections are, you can look at the projected spending growth over the next 10 years, and over 80% of it is due to three things. It's due to healthcare programs, it's due to retirement/Social Security, and it's due to interest on the debt, right? That DOGE effort, the other efforts you're talking about, those aren't going at the big ticket items. And unless you're going to start to talk about where some of the real savings are, including how you're getting sufficient revenue to afford the government we want, then meaningful action on this to make a dent is not going to happen.
Mike, if I can ask you just in our last minute about one question. It's so interesting because you mentioned Elon Musk and Vivek, who are working on Doge and other things. There's a little bit of an effort sometimes to say, run it like a business. And what you just described for some of these, they're running like a business. Kind of correlate that a little bit to government, because it doesn't run exactly like a business, but some of these are business principles that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Elon Musk has experience running multiple companies of significant scale that result in incredible innovations and large efficiencies that has resulted as well. So, he's trying to bring that approach to some of these efforts. I think it's yet to be seen how that works. I think that the broader principles of how to think about a business versus government. There are similarities, but there are differences, right? I kind of alluded to some of them before, and we talked to lots of business people that care about fiscal sustainability issues in Washington, and some of it's basic, right? You got to be able to pay your bills. You got to be careful of your debt load. All those kinds of issues are important for business. They apply to governments as well, but there's some big differences, right? There's big differences for government. Government has the Federal Reserve, has the power of the printing press, and has the ability to issue debt in ways that businesses can't, in ways, frankly, that state governments can't. We talk a lot to state governments who talk about the need that they have to balance their budgets. The federal government does not, right? It has a lot more flexibility. So there are some similarities in principles and norms, but it is obviously a very different when you're talking about managing the federal government. And political decisions are obviously very different from business decisions, as you were alluding to before. A lot of these decisions are made for politics, and we need the people to start putting the common interest, right, over political gain.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike Murphy, Senior Vice President and Chief of Staff for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. We're so grateful to have you on the show today, and we'll have to have you back in the future as we continue to talk about this.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Great talking with you.
All right, next on Inside Sources, more developments from the government as it moves to end DEI programs throughout federal agencies. We'll share some thoughts on getting rid of celebrations on days like Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Coming up next.
Good afternoon, 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top local story this hour. A Utah lawmaker wants to allow the state to invest public funds, your tax dollars, in cryptocurrency. State Representative Jordan Tusher is sponsoring a bill that would let the state treasurer invest funds from a few different rainy day accounts into digital assets like Bitcoin.
I think giving him the tools to ensure that our state is diversified, that we're looking at sovereignty within the different investments that the state is making is really important.
Only one lawmaker on a House committee voted no to the measure. The bill now heads to the full House for a vote. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Crews in D.C. are currently looking for the black boxes from the deadly crash last night.
At her first briefing since the crash, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy vowed the safety board will follow the facts, study the equipment, and review the actions of the pilots and air traffic controllers to determine a cause.
We will look at all the humans.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Black Hawk helicopter was on a routine annual nighttime retraining mission. But Hegseth says the experienced crew appears to have made a mistake, flying at an elevation that had it on a collision course with the jet. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment on Wall Street, the Dow up 168 points. Coming up, the haze is going to be washed away this weekend. The KSL weather forecast is next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
William is one of millions of Americans who uses GoodRx to save on the cost of their prescriptions.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on 5 different medications. It adds up at the end of the month. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx save you a lot of money. Saving that extra $200-300 a month. We're able to do all these extra activities, so it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
Download the free app or visit GoodRx.com and start saving today. GoodRx user compensated for their time. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit NPSstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. NPSstore.com.
Jeff Kaplan.
When I was a kid, my parents got me a subscription to Newsweek magazine. I would devour every page into the night. And to this day, I sit on my iPad looking for stories for my Minute of News, flesh out our coverage, and I get to share the news with you.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's limited time balance transfer bonus. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are finally out of emergency traffic and back to good speeds on all the Valley freeways. It does remain a little busy northbound I-15 in Murray as you're trying to get around what we had as a hazmat situation just after 53rd South, which still has a right lane blocked, but it is in the final cleanup stages. Lagoon is hiring full-time year-round ride maintenance technicians and electricians with journeyman or apprentice-level experience. Apply online at lagoonpark.com/jobs. Must be 18 years of age or older to apply. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, 22 degrees overnight. Clouds tomorrow ahead of the rain expected this weekend. Right now, 45 in Salt Lake City. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
Federal agencies have been directed to end diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, otherwise known as DEI. Now we're getting a better look into how those programs will be discontinued, starting with the Defense Department. The Defense Department's intelligence agency sent out a memo this week saying that it is pausing observances of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Pride Month, Holocaust Days of Remembrance, and other cultural or historical annual events. This is one of new Secretary Pete Hegseth's first actions, I think, really, don't you think, Jason? It's kind of one of the first things he's done.
It is, but it's also implementing based on an executive order that was signed by President Trump as well. And it's so interesting. We've talked already on this program a little bit about implementation of things.
Yes.
And, sometimes when there's not a lot of clarity, sometimes you go a little bit farther than maybe what was intended. I guess we'll see on that one. But for right now, the Secretary Pete Hegseth has asked his staff to create a DEI task force to ensure that no DEI programs remain in the Pentagon. That's the high level that we hear. And what's interesting is we're hearing this on the federal side. It's another version of a little bit of the debate the debate we already had here in the state of Utah with some legislation passed just last year.
Yeah. Let's listen to a brief clip of Secretary Hegseth speaking about this earlier today at a press conference on the plane crash in Washington, D.C.
The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government.
Now, I'm not going to lie. I am surprised. I think the theme of the day is implementation. I do, to your point a minute ago, I do think that's the thing. We are now seeing implementation rolling off of all of this whole slew of Trump's executive orders. And I'm surprised, actually, a little bit that one of the first things that they are doing at the Pentagon is targeting holidays. and the observance, the special observance of holidays. I don't even know what that means exactly or what they mean by that, but that's kind of what he is, or what this memo said, that there's a pause on special observances hosted throughout the year.
Yeah, so I'm not completely sure either why you start with some of those. Yeah, maybe it's just the names, or
maybe
I suppose, because we're not getting that. But Hegseth did kind of go beyond just those observances, which was a big part of it, talking about when it comes to getting rid of DEI programs. I just thought this was interesting because this was a quote from him as well. He says, "We're not joking around. There's no changing the names or softly manipulating something. DEI is gone." And that's why I mentioned the names itself.
Yeah.
Is because it seems like what they're trying to do is get to everything that looks like it's connected, which I wouldn't have put Martin Luther King Jr. as one of those DEI programs at all. But it's put in for this overarching pause that was put on. I think it's just it's just because it happens to be connected to this larger issue that that Hegseth is trying to do, which is look at where DEI programs exist in federal government and then take some sort of action.
Yeah, it sounds like the memo overall affects 11 annual events, including things like Black History Month and National Hispanic Heritage Month. But, again, on the special observances piece, it's like they're still acknowledging the holiday. They're just not observing the holiday. I don't know. I mean, where do you see this going, Jason? And you talked about how we've had the conversation here in the state. Maybe that actually puts you in a good position to talk about this. Where do you think this goes from an implementation standpoint on the federal level if we're shifting away from DEI?
Well, I guess it will be bureaucratic and difficult on the federal level, I suspect. like most things. What's interesting is sort of you try to look at the answer through what's happened in the state of Utah a little bit. And as our listeners may recall, last session there was legislation put in effect that effectively ended DEI programs. So there were things, and maybe you can tell what your thoughts are, how this is connected. But so there are a couple of things. One is like the programs themselves.
Yeah.
And the legislature listed a set of sort of prohibited conduct, the things that an entity, DEI program, could not do. First, you wouldn't call it that, back to the names. But then what is left and what can they do? I think that's where we get. Like, for example, in institutions of higher education, there's sorts of conduct that you could not promote certain sorts of things like personal characteristics are responsible for something. Active discrimination now is appropriate for discrimination in the past. They actually listed some of these things. So those go into the implementation a little bit. But the state of Utah also left opportunities for you to work through some of these issues. Most of the state agencies got rid of those programs, but Hegseth says, hey, you don't just change the nameplate. You have to change some other things as well.
Gone.
And Utah, I think, did it better, but we're still working through those ramifications. I don't know what you saw through various other parts of state government that you've been so closely connected to, or as well, that even gets down to the local level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been interesting to watch how private companies have responded to this. I think I saw even today that Apple said they are going to retain their DEI programming, and the federal government can do whatever it wants, but they see value in retaining that as part of their workforce. And so they're going to move forward with it. And we've seen a couple of companies like that come out and say, no, we're sticking to this. We like this. We want this to be part of what we do. So we're going to do it. So the shift and the break between what the federal government is doing and promoting and what private companies are doing has also been a really interesting piece of this to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And then you get to what states are doing. So
yeah,
all the private industry, which are approaching it in certain ways, and some high-level companies, some big names that people know, said they're going to continue. Some have said that they will not. We'll figure out what this means from the federal side, but we still have all the implications in the state of Utah. And what I think is just so interesting is how many of these sort of executive orders coming from Washington, D.C. have sort of rippled through states.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the federal government is a little bit behind, but it shows that this is an issue that people are still talking about. I'm not sure that the state of Utah has worked through this entirely, and I'm not, which makes me even less certain about what might happen on the federal side.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're taking a really complicated issue, right? We do have a very diverse population within the United States. Each state has its own diverse population, people from different backgrounds. You have different languages that are spoken here. You have different religious preferences and all sorts of things that create just sort of this melting pot that America is really known for. And how do you find a path forward on that when you want to acknowledge that, but you also don't want to necessarily be held hostage by it? And I think that's where a lot of the federal government is coming on this.
Well, it does seem that way. My expectation is that we'll receive additional guidance. There will be internal guidance that will come from these agencies and from the federal government. You understand the high-level interest that has been stated, but just like we had here in Utah, it's really the details you have to try to figure out. So there are some programs. I'll just give you an example, like from the University of Utah, where you had some of these groups, like like our Black Cultural Center, for example, which they the members of that center would say this is sort of just the living room. This is a cultural center, not an advocacy center. So our legislature left an opportunity there. Well, you can still have some of these, but there's a process that you have to go through to get those done. In higher ed, for example, you have to take a proposal to the system of higher education and say, this group will not do any of the prohibited conduct that you put in your statute, but this is what we're going to start. And so it's really those details and people finding a way through the law itself while still trying to remember the people involved.
Yeah. Well, again, implementation is the name of the game today. That's really our theme. In our final segment, we're going to talk about something on a different front with the implementation. We're going to fly into the future and talk about Utah's air taxi legislation. Coming up next.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer? Can we sleep cooler? Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Isn't it wonderful when you find a place that is just right for you, your family, and your friends? You feel comfortable there. You've never had a bad experience. You're always thoroughly pleased. That is the perfect description for me, my friends, my family, of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Both locations, Hotel Park City, and of course right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City at 275 Southwest Temple. From the moment you walk through the door, you just feel that ambiance is perfect. And when you're seated and you're introduced to your server, they take care of you from the very moment you sit down to the moment you ask for the to-go box so you can enjoy the leftovers at home. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. The steaks are prepared perfectly. The seafood is beyond compare. And of course, poultry dishes and so much more. The desserts, the side dishes. And don't forget, Valentine's is coming up. Perfect time right now. Do it. Make your reservations at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The future is coming to reality here in Utah as the plan to launch air taxis moves forward. This is a really exciting thing. We've seen some buzz about this over the last week or so as press conferences and all sorts of things have happened. Air taxis. This is basically drone technology that is going to take become part of our public transportation network and act as taxis. Tell us about this, Jason.
Well, it's right. When you saw our legislature talking about it, the governor, I think he was like using Star Trek references.
This is full-blown Jetsons territory, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this is clearly where it's going, and Utah is going to be at the front of this. This group, 47G, has been talking about this aircraft. It's you're like kind of like a drone, but these personal taxis are what's coming. Mm-hmm. Around the country and the world. I'll tell you, just kind of set the stage for how interesting this is. And I'm kind of curious, Erin, would you ride in one?
I would. Would I be a first adopter? I don't know.
You're not the first ride?
I might be the second ride.
Okay. Always good. The second mouse. But I think that what's interesting here, too, is you look where the future of the state is going. And, this is something that President Stuart Adams, the president of the Senate, has been talking about at great length. So he's sort of the visionary on this. But I'll tell you what this is wrapping into a little bit is the Olympics.
Yes.
In 10 years, how are we going to get people around? There are many in our state of Utah that are talking about where do we have landing pads? And I'm going to mention that because Stuart Adams even talked to us at the University of Utah because, of course, this is the forum for the opening and closing ceremonies, and the athletes' village is at the University of Utah campus. Where do we put a landing pad for these taxis? I mean, that's 10 years. Stuff's going to happen, and this could be one of the things.
But so this is really being spearheaded by 47G working with UDOT. And the idea here, at least from UDOT's side, is that, look, this strategy of just widening our roads is not sustainable. It's not going to work. We've built too much here in Salt Lake County, right, in the valley. We know the east-west traffic is a massive issue, but you can't really expand these roads east and west because you have houses. You'd have to tear down all the houses. We've seen this with the I-15 discussion, widening I-15. So the idea here is, all right, we can go vertical, and a landing pad takes up a lot less space than a road. So let's have landing pads, and then you can get from Salt Lake to Park City in 10 minutes, or you can get from Salt Lake to Ogden, or you can get down to Provo, or you can move around the state really quickly with these drone taxis.
Yeah, it's quite clear that, not just the practical things you talked about, you can't really expand these roads anymore, but this is where the technology is going anyway. Yeah. I mean, we're going up. Mm-hmm. probably only some of the folks my age would remember the Jetsons.
Oh, I remember the Jetsons.
Remember that great show?
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're getting there slowly but surely. But this is where the world's going, and it's not just these air taxis, but they're somewhat autonomous on top of that. So then you start looking at the infrastructure required for this. How you use these drones. There are parts of the state, including at the university. I know, giving a couple examples from the university, where you're already delivering like medications and things like that by drone.
Mhm.
It's not a big step to be dropping off people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is going to happen in phases too. So it's not you're not going to see an air taxi tomorrow. But like you said, we already do have packages being delivered by drone here in Utah. We're probably going to see an increase in that, and they'll start with that, and then eventually they'll get to transportation of people. And I think the goal is to have these be unmanned by
Yes.
the end of the time.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to this great aim from this 47G that is working with the state. This is the quote. They're going to establish a well-functioning statewide air cargo and transportation system in anticipation of the 2034 Winter Olympic Games. I mean, that's a pretty serious vision. And there are other parts of the country that are certainly working on this already. But when it comes to the charging, the transportation, you start with things like medications. You start with more cargo, your food delivery, and then pretty soon it's Aaron Ryder.
Right.
Perfect name for this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Governor Cox has chimed in on this. He's very supportive of it. He talked about how the Federal Aviation Administration last fall licensed a totally new category of aircraft, an electric-powered vertical takeoff and landing craft. It's the first time they've had a new type of aircraft in like 80 years. Yeah. And according to him, he said, we used to be really good at this stuff back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. How lucky we are to live in a state that still believes in building. And that goes right back to his State of the State address, where he said, we must build.
Yeah, absolutely right. That was one of his themes, and this is some kind of building right here with these aircraft. The company that we've been talking about is trying to build. I don't know if you had a chance to even look at this. The kind of aircraft. There are two of them, and this is how they describe this. It's a 5-blade rear-mounted propeller, and is capable of carrying 5 passengers, and have a maximum cruising speed of 155 miles per hour.
Okay.
Well, that's a transport right there.
That's a transport.
That is for sure. It's just so interesting to see how fast the technology is taking off. Of course, we've seen not just what's happening in the state of Utah, but the big manufacturers, the big automobile manufacturers particularly, are looking at this, and it's going to be sort of an arms race of sorts for these sorts of taxis.
Mm-hmm. You know what I love about this too is that Utah has, we've talked a lot about how Utah's been at the top of every list that you can count for a number of years now. And I like the fact that we have folks and industries and leaders here in the state that want us to remain at the top of that list, right? It's not, hey, we're at the top of the list, we're great, we're just going to cruise here for a while. It's, no, we're going to stay at the top of the list. Yeah. And you know where we're going next? We're going next with air taxis. I love that. I get a kick out of that.
Yeah, for sure. And look at who's involved, too, to kind of show how important this is. You got the governor talking about it. You got private companies. Mm-hmm. You got Carlos Braceras, who runs UDOT. You've got Ryan Starks, who runs the Governor's Office of Economic Development. You have this whole group of people out there that are working on sort of the future itself, and it seems pretty clear to me that this is where it's going.
Yeah.
A lot of people are starting with their electric cars, but maybe, the next one is something else. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think that's really great, right? Because the conversation for so long has been electric vehicles, electric cars, right? It's just all focused on electric cars. Not that we're necessarily getting away from that, but we are exploring other types of transportation, and that to me is really exciting.
Yeah. Where do you kind of fall on the side here? Because you've got this sort of the political leadership here, but largely it's going to take the private sector to come to do their part. So public sector working with the private sector is clearly what's needed.
Yes, and I love that. To me, that's a perfect way that this needs to function, right? Because I don't know that I would want the government itself running this, but I like that the government is saying we want to incentivize development, we want to incentivize new ideas and creativity. So we're going to support, we're going to help, but it's really these private companies, it's really, these other entities that are going to step in here. And so that partnership, I think, at least so far, looks to me like a perfect example of how government can be supportive of private organizations and how private organizations can work with government to do really innovative things.
Yeah, this may be one of those sort of issues and opportunities that really brings those two together. So government's not trying to decide what it can do and how much it should eat. It really kind of just provides the space, which is what it seems like is happening here.
Yeah, it almost harkens back to sort of the JFK's, we're going to put a man on the moon kind of a thing, right? And even though, NASA and all of that were government organizations, I like the idea behind it. It's, hey, we're going to go do something big. We're going to go, move the needle in a significant way, and we're going to work with the right people to get it done.
Yeah, that's clearly what's happening right here, and I'd love to see the state of Utah being on the cutting edge.
Yeah. Well, Jason, it has been so fun to have you on the show today. Thanks for being a guest host.
Well, happy to be with you always. Thank you very much.
So much fun. All righty. Well, thank you again for listening to Inside Sources. Tomorrow, join Adam Gardner and Greg Skordas as they broadcast live from the state capitol for a special Eye on the Hill edition of Inside Sources from 1 to 3 p.m. here on KSL News Radio. Next up, Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. Right now in Salt Lake City, 45 degrees. KSL's top story. After the